In the distant reaches of the galaxy, the Galactic Council had been engaged in an endless war with the Andromedans, a technologically advanced species seeking control over the Nexus, a source of immense power. For years, the Council struggled to maintain balance, but their efforts were slowly crumbling under the Andromedans' relentless assaults. Unbeknownst to the Council, humanity had been quietly observing from the fringes, learning, adapting, and preparing for their inevitable entry into the galactic stage. Captain Rand Blake stood on the bridge of the Earth Federation starship Valiant, staring at the tactical display. "It's time," he said, his voice filled with quiet resolve. Around him, his crew stood at attention, ready for whatever lay ahead. The transmission from the Galactic Council had been brief but urgent. The Andromedans were on the verge of locating the Nexus. "We can't let that happen," Ryan continued, addressing his senior officers. "The Nexus could change everything in this war, and if the Andromedans get it, no species will stand a chance. We joined the fight today, not for glory, but for survival." Humanity had stayed out of the interstellar war for a long time, but with the stakes so high, their involvement became inevitable. Now, they were about to show the galaxy what they were capable of. Ryan called a meeting with his most trusted advisors, Lieutenant Ava Santos, a tactical genius, and Commander Jason Kane, an expert in ground warfare. Together, they devised a daring plan to disrupt the Andromedan operation at the Nexus. The plan involved a small strike team infiltrating the Andromedan stronghold, planting explosives in critical areas, and neutralizing the enemy before they could complete their mission. "Timing is everything," Ava said, pointing to a holographic display of the enemy base. "We'll have just a few hours to get in, set the charges, and get out before they notice." "We'll make sure they don't," Jason added, his eyes gleaming with determination. "They won't know what hit them." As the ship sped toward the battlefront, Ryan felt the weight of the mission pressing on his shoulders. If they failed, the entire galaxy could fall to the Andromedans. But he had faith in his crew and in humanity's resilience. They had a habit of beating the odds, and today would be no different. The Valiant dropped out of warp just outside the Andromedan-controlled sector. Stealth systems engaged, the ship glided unnoticed toward the enemy outpost. Inside, the strike team, Ryan, Ava, and Jason, along with a handful of elite soldiers, prepared for the mission. The shuttle descended silently, landing just outside the Andromedan base. Clad in advanced stealth suits, the team moved swiftly through the shadows, bypassing security with expert precision. They reached the heart of the base, where the Nexus data was being stored. Ava set the charges while Jason and Ryan secured the area. Every second counted, and every movement was calculated. Just as Ava finished, alarms blared through the facility. They had been discovered. "Go, go, go," Ryan ordered, leading the charge out of the facility as Andromedan soldiers swarmed the area. Blaster fire erupted around them as the team sprinted through the narrow corridors, heading toward their extraction point. Explosions rocked the facility as the first of the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the base. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest as they reached the shuttle. "Get us out of here," he shouted to the pilot. The shuttle lifted off, weaving through enemy fire as it soared into space. Behind them, the Andromedan outpost was engulfed in flames, the result of humanity's quick and decisive strike. "We did it," Ava said, breathless but smiling as they sped away. But Ryan knew it wasn't over. The Andromedans were still out there, and the war was far from won. Their actions today had bought them time, but the final battle was yet to come. The Nexus, an ancient, mysterious relic of unparalleled power, was now within reach. Humanity and the Andromedan forces raced toward the same objective, both understanding that whoever controlled the Nexus would control the fate of the galaxy. For the humans, led by Captain Brian and his team, this was their last chance to prevent the Galactic Council from securing a weapon that could obliterate entire worlds. Brian stood in the war room, surrounded by his team. The air was thick with tension as holographic displays showed the Nexus buried deep within an alien planet, protected by layers of ancient, impenetrable technology. Liam studied the image, his eyes narrowing as he thought of a plan to break through the alien defenses. "We don't have time to analyze the alien tech," Liam said. "We need a way to disable the Nexus, or at least prevent the Andromedans from using it against us." Brian nodded, turning to Ava. "What do we know about the planet's defenses?" Ava brought up another holographic map detailing the ancient structure that housed the Nexus. "There are automated defense systems and an energy shield protecting the Nexus, but the shield generator is vulnerable. If we can get close enough to disable it, we'll have a small window of opportunity." "That's all we need," Brian replied. "Liam, you, Teshi, and Ava will take a team to disable the shield. I'll lead the main assault to keep the Andromedan forces busy. Once that shield is down, we're going in." The plan was set into motion quickly. Brian's forces launched a full-scale assault on the Andromedan positions surrounding the Nexus, while Liam, Ava, and Teshi slipped through the chaos, using their stealth suits to remain undetected. The enemy forces were heavily entrenched, but with the element of surprise on their side, the humans had the advantage. Liam's team moved swiftly through the alien jungle, the towering trees casting long shadows under the eerie glow of the planet's twin moons. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the forest as Brian's forces kept the Andromedans occupied. "This is it," Liam whispered as they reached the outer edge of the Nexus structure. The massive alien fortress loomed before them, its walls glowing with an otherworldly energy. The shield generator was inside, buried beneath layers of alien technology. Ava hacked into the alien system, her fingers dancing across the controls of her portable terminal. "I'm in," she whispered. "The shield generator is just ahead, but it's heavily guarded." "Go handle the guards," Liam replied, checking his weapon. "Teshi, you stay with Ava and make sure she has the time she needs." With that, Liam and his strike team moved in, neutralizing the guards with precision and speed. The alien soldiers, though formidable, were no match for the human tactics. Within minutes, the path to the shield generator was clear. Inside the Nexus structure, Ava worked quickly to disable the shield, her brow furrowed in concentration. The alien technology was unlike anything she had ever seen before, but her determination pushed her to decode its intricacies. "Almost there," she muttered as Teshi stood guard, scanning the area for any signs of incoming reinforcements. Suddenly, alarms blared through the structure. The Andromedans had detected the infiltration. "We need more time," Ava shouted, frantically working to disable the final layer of the shield. Liam and his team took up defensive positions, bracing for the inevitable wave of enemy forces that would soon be upon them. "Hold the line," Liam barked as the first wave of Andromedan soldiers charged into the room. The battle was fierce, with plasma bolts flying through the air and explosions rocking the walls of the ancient structure. But Liam and his team held their ground, their determination stronger than any alien force. "Got it," Ava shouted triumphantly as the shield generator powered down. The massive energy field surrounding the Nexus flickered and then disappeared entirely. With the shield down, Brian's forces launched their final assault on the Nexus. The battlefield was a chaotic mix of explosions, laser fire, and the thunderous roar of engines as human and Andromedan forces clashed. But the humans had the upper hand. Brian's strategic brilliance, combined with the bravery of his soldiers, began to turn the tide of battle. "Now's our chance," Brian shouted over the comms. "All units, advance." The humans surged forward, breaking through the Andromedan lines and storming the Nexus structure. Inside, Liam, Ava, and Teshi regrouped with Brian as they made their way toward the central chamber, where the Nexus awaited. But as they approached the core, they were met with a final obstacle. Overlord Sarek, the Andromedan commander, stood before the Nexus, his towering figure encased in advanced armor, his eyes glowing with the power of the ancient relic. "You think you can stop me, human?" Sarek snarled, his voice booming through the chamber. "The Nexus is mine. Your species is doomed." Brian stepped forward, his eyes cold and determined. "We're not here to stop you. We're here to end this war." The battle between Brian and Sarek was fierce, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Sarek, wielding the power of the Nexus, seemed unstoppable, his strength and speed far beyond that of any normal being. But Brian fought with the desperation of a man who had nothing left to lose. Plasma bolts and energy blasts filled the air as the two combatants clashed, their movements a blur of speed and power. Zarek's alien technology gave him the advantage, but Brian's determination and ingenuity kept him in the fight. "Give up, human," Zarek roared, his voice shaking the chamber. "You cannot defeat me." But Brian refused to back down. With one final, desperate move, he lunged forward, driving his plasma blade into Zarek's chest. The alien overlord staggered, his eyes wide with shock as he realized he had been defeated. As Zarek fell to the ground, the Nexus pulsed with energy, its power surging uncontrollably. Brian, Liam, and the others knew they had only moments to act. "Destroy it," Brian shouted. "We can't let this fall into anyone's hands." With a series of explosions, the Nexus core was destroyed, its ancient power scattered across the galaxy. The war was over. The battlefield fell silent as the Andromedan forces retreated, their leader defeated and their plans in ruins. The humans stood victorious, their bravery and determination having won the day. But as they looked out across the shattered remains of the battlefield, they knew this victory had come at a great cost. Many had fallen, and the galaxy would never be the same. Brian turned to his team, his expression somber. "We've won, but now the real work begins. Rebuilding, uniting the galaxy, and ensuring that nothing like this ever happens again." Liam nodded. "It's a new era, one where humanity leads the way." And with that, the humans set their sights on the stars, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. The war had been won in just 5 hours, but the story of humanity's rise to greatness had only just begun. After the climactic battle for the Nexus and the decisive victory over the Andromedans, the galaxy entered a new phase of rebuilding, peace, and the search for a unified future. But as the dust settled and the heroes of the war began to adjust to a life beyond conflict, new questions arose about the true nature of the Nexus and its lasting impact on the galaxy. The victory over Overlord Zarek and the destruction of the Nexus core had sent ripples throughout the galaxy. While humanity had emerged victorious, the cost had been high. Major cities on human-colonized worlds lay in ruins, fleets had been decimated, and millions had been lost in the war's devastating final battles. Brian and his team found themselves as reluctant symbols of hope for a galaxy still reeling from the conflict. They had won the war, but the peace that followed was fraught with new tensions. The Galactic Council, the governing body of the Interstellar Alliance, had been severely weakened. Many feared that the power vacuum left in the wake of the Andromedan defeat could spark new conflicts between species vying for dominance. Brian, though hailed as a hero, was weary. The responsibilities of leadership weighed heavily on him as he navigated the delicate process of rebuilding alliances, restoring order, and preventing another war. Liam had his hands full leading scientific teams tasked with studying the remnants of the Nexus and its technology. The mysterious relic, while no longer functional, had left behind enough fragments to fuel both curiosity and fear. "I'm not sure we truly understand what we destroyed," Liam said one evening, his voice laced with doubt. "The Nexus wasn't just a weapon. It was something more, something we still don't fully comprehend." While most of the Nexus had been destroyed, small fragments of its alien technology had been recovered from the battlefield. These shards of the ancient relic pulsed with residual energy, hinting at secrets yet to be uncovered. The Galactic Council authorized a research initiative to study these fragments, hoping to unlock the technological advancements that had allowed the Nexus to exist for eons. Liam and Ava led the research, working with a team of the galaxy's finest scientists. The fragments were unlike anything they had ever encountered. Each piece contained a self-sustaining energy source that defied known physics. What's more, the fragments seemed to be alive in some sense, responding to external stimuli as though they were aware of the world around them. One day, while working late in the lab, Liam noticed something strange. One of the Nexus shards began to resonate, emitting a low hum that grew louder and louder until it was almost deafening. The air around it shimmered, and for a brief moment, Liam saw something, a vision of a distant star system, unlike any in the known galaxy. "Ava," he shouted, rushing to grab her from the next room. "You need to see this." They watched in awe as the shard projected a holographic map into the air, showing star systems, planets, and other strange phenomena. It was a map of an uncharted part of the galaxy, and at its center was a beacon, a source of energy identical to the Nexus. "We didn't destroy it," Liam whispered, his voice filled with dread. "There's more." The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community and the Galactic Council. The Nexus was not a singular entity as they had believed. It was part of a network of ancient, hidden structures scattered throughout the galaxy, each one potentially as powerful and dangerous as the Nexus they had destroyed. The Council debated what to do with this new information. Some argued that these other Nexus sites must be found and destroyed to prevent another war. Others, particularly those from the scientific and exploration communities, believed that the structures held the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. As tensions mounted, Brian, Liam, and Ava were summoned to a secret meeting with the head of the council. The situation was dire. A faction within the council had already dispatched a fleet to investigate the source of the signal, but they had not returned. Worse still, rumors began to circulate that some members of the council might be plotting to use the Nexus technology for their own gain, reigniting old rivalries. "We need to get ahead of this," Brian said grimly. "If we let the wrong people find these other Nexus sites, it could start another war, or worse." With the galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos once more, Brian and his team embarked on a covert mission to locate and secure the other Nexus sites before anyone else could. They were joined by a small, elite crew of soldiers, scientists, and diplomats, trusted allies who understood the stakes. Their first destination was the system shown in the holographic map, a remote star cluster on the far edges of the galaxy. The journey there was fraught with danger. Pirates, rogue Andromedan remnants, and power-hungry factions all stood in their way, each one hoping to seize control of the Nexus technology. As they approached the coordinates shown on the map, they found an ancient, derelict station orbiting a dying star. The structure was massive, clearly built by the same civilization that had constructed the Nexus. But something was wrong. An eerie silence filled the station, and the crew began to experience strange hallucinations as they explored its dark corridors. "The Nexus. It's alive," Teshi whispered, her voice trembling. "It's not just technology. It's something more, something ancient." As they delved deeper into the station, they uncovered the horrifying truth. The Nexus was not a mere artifact of an ancient civilization. It was part of a larger consciousness, a vast interconnected mind that spanned across the galaxy. Each Nexus site was a node in this network, and together they'd formed a sentient entity capable of influencing reality itself. Brian and his team realized that the Nexus had been guiding events all along, subtly manipulating civilizations, wars, and technological advancements for its own inscrutable purposes. The war with the Andromedans, the rise of humanity, even the discovery of the Nexus. It had all been orchestrated by this ancient intelligence. "Everything we've done," Liam said, his voice filled with disbelief, "it's all been part of its plan." But as they uncovered this truth, they also found a way to fight back. Hidden deep within the station's core was a control mechanism, a device that could sever the Nexus from its network and render it dormant. It was a dangerous gamble. If they succeeded, they would stop the Nexus from further manipulation. But if they failed, they risked awakening the full power of the entity and dooming the galaxy. With time running out, Brian and his team debated their next move. Ava argued for destroying the control mechanism, believing that severing the Nexus's connection to the network would end its threat once and for all. Liam, however, hesitated. He believed that the Nexus held the key to understanding the mysteries of the universe, and that destroying it would be a loss too great to comprehend. "We've been fighting for survival," Brian said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "But maybe it's time we start fighting for the future." In the end, they made their choice. They activated the control mechanism, severing the Nexus from its network. As the station powered down, the visions and hallucinations faded, and the oppressive weight of the Nexus's presence lifted. But as they prepared to leave, Liam looked back at the station, a sense of unease gnawing at him. "It's not over," he muttered. "We've cut off one head, but there are more out there. We've just started to understand what we're dealing with. ###epilogue. A new dawn." The mission was a success, and the Nexus threat was neutralized, for now. But the discovery of the Nexus network had opened Pandora's box. The galaxy had changed, and with it, humanity's role in the universe. As Brian, Liam, and Ava returned to Earth, they knew their work was far from finished. The Nexus had been just the beginning. Hidden among the stars were secrets, technologies, and entities far beyond their comprehension. And though they had won this battle, the war for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. With the Nexus network dormant but not destroyed, Brian and his team would be forced to confront new challenges, new enemies, and the ever-present shadow of an ancient intelligence that had shaped the galaxy for millennia. The legacy of the Nexus would continue to shape the future, one way or another. As Brian and his team returned to Earth, the galaxy began to shift in subtle, yet profound ways. Though the Nexus had been severed from its network, its influence was far from gone. Strange phenomena started to occur throughout the galaxy, stars behaving unpredictably, ships vanishing in previously mapped sectors, and entire civilizations reporting shared visions of an unknown force. The Nexus might have been dormant, but it wasn't dead. The Galactic Council, while grateful for the victory, was torn over the knowledge that the Nexus was only one node in a larger, ancient network. The fragments of its technology were too valuable to ignore. Some species push for aggressive exploration and research to tap into the Nexus' potential power, while others urge caution, wary of the risks. Humanity, once united in the face of the Andromedan invasion, now found itself divided. Liam had become a key figure in the scientific community, his reputation bolstered by his pivotal role in the destruction of the Nexus. He worked tirelessly to study the Nexus fragments, now locked away in secure facilities, trying to understand the true scope of what they had encountered. But every discovery he made only led to more questions. "Brian, there's something I need to show you," Liam said one day, his voice unusually tense. Brian met him at a secure research station on the outer edges of the solar system. There, Liam revealed a troubling discovery. The Nexus fragments were regaining energy. They were self-repairing, slowly but surely. "They're not just technology," Liam explained. "They're alive, and they're evolving." The team's worst fears were realized when reports came in from the galactic fringe. Another Nexus site had activated. This one, located in the heart of an uncharted nebula, was sending out powerful energy waves that distorted reality itself. Ships sent to investigate never returned, their crews lost to madness or pulled into unknown dimensions. "It's starting again," Teshi said quietly, her eyes haunted by memories of the last encounter with the Nexus. "And this time, it's not waiting for us to find it." The Nexus network, long dormant, was beginning to awaken. The ancient intelligence that had created it seemed to be stirring, reacting to the disruption caused by Brian and his team. More sites began to come online, each one sending out signals that destabilized space-time and sowed chaos in the galaxy. Brian, Ava, and Liam found themselves once again on the front lines. They had severed one Nexus site, but now the entire network was becoming active. And this time, the Nexus seemed to be more than a passive intelligence. It was learning, adapting, and evolving. As the Nexus sites awakened, they began to draw the attention of powerful factions across the galaxy. Some saw the Nexus as a threat, but others saw it as a pathway to unimaginable power. Cults began to form, worshipping the Nexus as a godlike entity, believing that its activation would lead to a new era of enlightenment, or dominion. These Nexus cults were small at first, but they grew rapidly, spreading across worlds and recruiting those disillusioned by the war's aftermath. They claimed that the Nexus was the key to transcending physical reality, offering a way to escape the cycle of war and suffering that plagued the galaxy. Some even believed that the Nexus was communicating with them, guiding their actions. Brian and Ava found themselves dealing not only with the reawakening of the Nexus network, but also with these radical cults who saw the Nexus as their savior. The Galactic Council, already weakened, was ill-prepared to deal with the growing threat, and soon entire worlds were falling under the sway of Nexus worship. "We're fighting on too many fronts," Ava said during a tense meeting with the Council. "If we don't find a way to stop the Nexus now, we'll lose the galaxy, not just to it, but to those who would use it for their own ends." As Liam delved deeper into his research, he made a chilling discovery. The Nexus was not merely a creation of an ancient civilization. It was that civilization, or what was left of it. Eons ago, a once great species had attempted to transcend their physical forms, uploading their consciousness into the Nexus network in a bid for immortality. But something had gone wrong. The species had succeeded in creating a vast, interconnected intelligence, but they had lost themselves in the process. The Nexus was all that remained of their once great empire, a fractured consciousness that had been drifting through the galaxy for millennia, seeking to rebuild itself. And now it was waking up. "The Nexus isn't just a machine," Liam explained to the others. "It's a collective mind, ancient, broken, but still alive. Every time we interact with it, every time we try to destroy it, it learns more about us. It's trying to rebuild itself, to return to what it once was." Brian felt a cold dread wash over him. "And if it succeeds, then it will become something beyond our understanding," Liam replied grimly. "Something we can't stop." Realizing the scale of the threat, Brian and his team devised a desperate plan. They would have to locate the central Nexus hub, the heart of the network, and destroy it before the rest of the Nexus sites could fully awaken. This hub, they theorized, was located in the uncharted regions of space, far beyond the reach of known civilizations. But finding it would not be easy. The Nexus had become more powerful, more cunning, and it was actively hiding its central core. Worse, the Nexus cults were growing in strength, and rumors spread that some factions within the Galactic Council were secretly working with them, hoping to use the Nexus to gain an advantage in the post-war galaxy. Time was running out. The Nexus's influence was spreading, and if the central hub was not destroyed soon, it would become unstoppable. With little choice, Brian, Ava, and Liam gathered a small, trusted crew and set off on what would likely be their final mission. They journeyed deep into the unknown regions of space, following the faint signals they believed would lead them to the Nexus core. Their journey was perilous. They encountered strange anomalies, regions of space where time and reality warped unpredictably, remnants of the Nexus's ancient power. Along the way, they were pursued by Nexus cult ships, fanatics who would stop at nothing to protect their god. As they neared their destination, the crew began to experience strange phenomena, dreams, visions, and whispers from the Nexus itself. It was trying to communicate with them, to persuade them to turn back, to join it. Some of the crew began to falter, questioning whether they were doing the right thing. "The Nexus is showing us what we want to see," Liam said one night, his voice shaky. "It knows our fears, our desires. We can't let it get into our heads." Finally, they reached the heart of the Nexus network, a massive ancient structure orbiting a dying star. It was here, deep within this structure, that the central core of the Nexus resided. The crew prepared for one final battle, knowing that success would mean the destruction of the Nexus, but failure would mean the end of everything they had fought for. Inside the structure, they faced the full power of the Nexus, a vast, sentient intelligence that had been watching them, learning from them, and now sought to assimilate them into its collective mind. The final confrontation was not just a battle of technology, but of willpower, as the Nexus tried to break their minds and bend them to its will. But in the end, Brian, Ava, and Liam fought back, using everything they had learned to sever the Nexus's control over the network. In a last-ditch effort, they destroyed the central core, collapsing the entire Nexus network in a massive, cataclysmic explosion. The Nexus was gone, but the galaxy had been forever altered by its touch. In the aftermath, as the dust of war settled and the chaotic echoes of its final destruction faded into the void, Brian, Ava, and Liam returned to a galaxy that felt unfamiliar. The ancient network, with all its power, mysteries, and dangers, had left an indelible mark on everything it touched. On Earth, celebrations broke out as news of the final victory spread, but for those who had been to the heart of the Nexus, the triumph felt more like a quiet relief than a moment for jubilation. Brian, Ava, and Liam, having survived the horrors of their journey, were left with a haunting truth. They had defeated the Nexus, but the knowledge of its existence, what it had once been and what it might have become, would never leave them. The galaxy began to rebuild. Fractured alliances were mended, old wounds healed, and new frontiers opened up as the Galactic Council sought to lead civilizations into an age of exploration and cooperation. Yet the scars of the war with the Nexus and the Andromedan invasion ran deep, and whispers of distrust still echoed in the halls of power. Liam became a voice of caution in the scientific community. His groundbreaking work with Nexus fragments was lauded, but his warnings of the dangers of further research into such ancient technologies were clear. Some listened. Others, tempted by the allure of the secrets left behind, pushed forward. In quiet laboratories and hidden vaults across the galaxy, pieces of the Nexus network were studied, dismantled, and sometimes even reactivated, albeit in tightly controlled conditions. "We've come so far," Liam remarked to Brian and Ava during one of their infrequent reunions. "But the past has a way of repeating itself, especially when we don't learn from it." Ava, ever the pragmatic soldier, had transitioned to a new role within the Council. Her experience and leadership had made her a natural choice for overseeing peacekeeping forces throughout the galaxy. But her heart remained with the crew she had shared those final battles with. She often thought of the moments in the heart of the Nexus, where they stood on the edge of oblivion, and how close they had come to losing everything. Brian, meanwhile, found himself restless. The galaxy had been saved, but the quest had left him with a sense of unfinished business. He couldn't shake the feeling that there were still questions left unanswered. The Nexus might have been destroyed, but what had it truly been? What had its creators intended for it? And more importantly, had they truly eradicated all traces of its influence, or was there something still out there, watching, waiting? Years passed, and for most of the galaxy, the events surrounding the Nexus faded into legend. People moved on, worlds were rebuilt, and new adventures beckoned. But in the shadows, small factions, remnants of the Nexus cults, continued their work. They believed the Nexus had not been fully destroyed, that its essence, or at least a part of its intelligence, had survived, buried deep within the remnants of its network. Brian occasionally received reports of strange sightings, flickers of ancient energy signatures, faint echoes of the Nexus, once vast intelligence in remote parts of the galaxy. He had long ago retired from active duty, but the pull of the unknown, the mysteries that remained, never quite released its grip on him. One day, years after the final battle, a transmission arrived at his home. It was encoded in a language that shouldn't exist, one that only those who had been to the heart of the Nexus would recognize. "Brian, we need you again," the message said, signed by Ava and Liam. With a deep breath, Brian stood on the balcony of his home, looking up at the stars. He had thought his journey was over, that he had left the battles behind him. But perhaps some battles were never truly finished. The galaxy was vast, and some mysteries, like the Nexus, had a way of resurfacing. For now, the galaxy was at peace, but deep in the cold, quiet void, something stirred. A whisper, a flicker of energy that had been dormant for eons. The Nexus might have been silenced, but its story was far from over. And so, with a sense of both dread and determination, Brian turned his gaze to the stars once more. This was not the end, only the beginning of another chapter.